Billionaire CEO marries 53 times to find true love until he met his black queen. Have you ever searched so hard for love that you forgot what it truly felt like? If you've ever been hurt by love or are still hoping to find it, subscribe now. You belong here. He didn't believe in love anymore, not after wife number 12 stole his fortune. Not after wife number 27 faked her pregnancy. Not after wife number 39 ran off with his lawyer. And definitely not after wife number 52 married him on Tuesday and vanished by Friday. But all it took was one caramel-skinned woman who didn't want a damn thing from him to remind him what real love tastes like. Javion Steele, the elusive CEO of Steele Innovations, has it all. Private jets, boardrooms at his command, and Forbes features with every breath he takes. But beneath that tailored suit lies a heart that's been shattered 53 times. He's married actresses, heiresses, influencers, even a Duchess once. Each time hoping this one would finally stay. Each time left staring at cold sheets and colder divorce settlements. Then came Raina Westbrook. She wasn't a model. She wasn't rich. She didn't care for his headlines. She walked into a gala in a thrifted dress and spoke truth that silenced 1,000 suits. He couldn't take his eyes off her, and for the first time in years, he didn't want to impress her. He wanted to deserve her. Would you survive 53 heartbreaks just to meet the one person who sees you for who you truly are? If you believe true love still exists, hit that subscribe button right now. This story is yours too. Let's talk about real love, not just shiny promises. Javion Steele stood alone in his Manhattan penthouse, the city skyline glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows like a cruel reminder of everything he owned and nothing he felt. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sharp rip of paper as he tore his 53rd prenuptial agreement in half. The pieces fluttered to the marble floor, joining the scattered remnants of a marriage that had lasted 3 days. His jaw clenched, and he muttered to the empty room, "Love isn't something you pencil in between board meetings." He poured a glass of bourbon, the amber liquid catching the dim light of a single lamp. 53 wives, actresses who craved his spotlight, heiresses who saw him as a trophy, influencers who staged their vows for likes. Even a Duchess once, her accent as polished as her betrayal. Each had promised forever. Each had left him with nothing but cold sheets and colder divorce settlements. He was done with the vows, the rings, the hope that someone might stay. A soft knock broke his thoughts. His assistant, Marcus, entered, holding a cream-colored envelope sealed with a wax crest. "This came for you, sir," Marcus said, his tone careful, as if handling a live grenade. "Courier dropped it off an hour ago. No return address." Javion arched a brow, taking the envelope. Another lawsuit, or is wife number 52 back for her parting gift? His voice dripped with sarcasm, but his fingers worked quickly, breaking the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten in elegant cursive. "Mr. Steele, I've watched you from afar. Your heart deserves more than fleeting promises. Marry me and I'll show you love that doesn't run." A devoted admirer. He laughed, a bitter sound that echoed off the walls. "A fan," he said, tossing the letter onto the coffee table. "What's next, Marcus? A reality show? Marry the billionaire?" Marcus hesitated, adjusting his glasses. "Sir, maybe it's a sign. You've been through a lot. Maybe this is someone who sees you, not your name." Javion's eyes narrowed. "Sees me? Nobody sees me. They see the jets, the headlines, the Forbes covers. I'm a prize, not a person." He downed the bourbon in one swallow, the burn doing little to dull the ache in his chest. "Get rid of it, and tell legal to screen my mail from now on." Marcus nodded but didn't move. "With respect, sir, you've been tearing yourself apart. 53 marriages. You can't keep doing this. What if you took a break, found yourself before you chase someone else? Javion's gaze hardened. You're my assistant, not my therapist. Do your job. Marcus left quietly, the letter still on the table, its words lingering like a dare. Javion poured another drink, but his eyes kept drifting to the cursive script. A devoted admirer. The phrase mocked him, yet it stirred something he hadn't felt in years. Curiosity. The next morning, Javion sat across from Dr. Zinnia Moon in her sleek Upper East Side office. The therapist's dark eyes studied him, her notebook untouched on her lap. She was the only person he'd ever let see the cracks in his armor, though he'd never admit it. You're addicted, Javion, she said, her voice calm but unyielding. Not to love, but to the chase. The thrill of a new face, a new promise. You marry to fill a void, but you're digging it deeper. He leaned back, crossing his arms. Then maybe I just haven't found the one worth staying for. Zinnia's lips pressed into a thin line. That's what you said after wife 12, and 27, and 39. Now 53. You're not searching for love, you're running from yourself. One more impulsive marriage, and I'm done treating you. I won't watch you destroy what's left of your heart. He stood, his voice ice cold. Then we're done now. I don't need ultimatums, Zinnia. I need someone who believes in me. Believe in yourself first, she called as he walked out, but the door slammed shut behind him. Back at Steele Innovations, Javion buried himself in work, barking orders at executives who scurried like mice. But the letter from the admirer gnawed at him. Who was she? A gold digger with better handwriting? A prankster? Or, against all logic, someone genuine? He called Marcus into his office. Find out who sent that letter, he said, tapping his desk. Discreetly, no leaks to the press. Marcus nodded, but his expression was skeptical. Sir, are you sure? After everything, maybe this isn't... Do it, Javion snapped. I want a name, a face, a background. Yesterday. Days later, Marcus returned with a thin file. No name, sir. The courier was paid in cash, no trace, but the letter was mailed from a postbox in Harlem. That's all we've got. Javion flipped open the file, staring at a grainy photo of the postbox. Harlem, he murmured. Why there? His world was penthouses and private islands, not street corners and bodegas. The mystery tugged harder, a thread he couldn't resist pulling. That night he attended a gala at the Met, a glittering cage of champagne flutes and fake smiles. He was there to be seen, to remind the world that Javion Steele was untouchable, even after 53 failures. Then he saw her. Raina Westbrook stood across the room, her caramel skin glowing under the chandelier light. Her dress was simple, thrifted, with a hem that didn't quite match the designer gowns around her. She held a glass of water, not wine, and her eyes scanned the crowd with a quiet intensity. When she spoke to a group of suits, their laughter died, replaced by nods and furrowed brows. She wasn't charming them, she was commanding them. Javion froze. For the first time in years, his pulse quickened, not from anger or betrayal, but from something else. He didn't want to impress her. He wanted to know her. He approached, ignoring the whispers that followed him. You don't belong here, he said, his voice low, testing her. Raina's eyes met his, unflinching. Neither do you, she replied. You're Javion Steele, right? The man who buys love and wonders why it breaks. His jaw tightened, but he didn't look away. And you're the woman who walks into a gala like she owns it, in a dress that cost less than my cufflinks. Who are you? Raina Westbrook, she said, her voice steady. I run a non-profit for kids in Harlem. I'm here to get donors, not headlines, and I don't care about your money. He smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. Everyone cares about money. Not me, she said, stepping closer. I care about truth. And you, Mr. Steele, look like a man who's forgotten what that is." The air between them crackled, a challenge neither would back down from. Before he could respond, a photographer's flash broke the moment, and Raina slipped into the crowd. Javion stood there, her words echoing in his mind. Truth. When was the last time he'd faced it? Back at his penthouse, he found the admirer's letter on his desk, untouched. He read it again, his thoughts drifting to Raina. Was she the one who wrote it? The postbox in Harlem, her non-profit. Too many coincidences. Or was he grasping at shadows, desperate for something real? He called Marcus. Dig into Raina Westbrook. Everything. Her past, her work, her secrets. I need to know who she is. As Marcus hung up, Javion stared at the city below, a question burning in his chest. Could Raina be the one to break his cycle of heartbreak? Or was she just another name on a list that would end in betrayal? The answer, he knew, would change everything. If you've made it this far, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I truly hope you're enjoying the story. It means so much to have you here, sharing this moment with me. Please take a second to tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing how far our story family reaches. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so we can keep sharing these powerful stories together. Now, let's continue with the story. Javion Steele sat in his penthouse, the admirer's letter crumpled in his fist. Raina Westbrook's face haunted him, her piercing eyes, her unapologetic words at the gala. Was she the one who'd written the letter, promising love that wouldn't flee? The Harlem postbox, her non-profit, it lined up too neatly. Or was he seeing patterns where none existed, his heart too broken to trust itself? He tossed the letter aside and grabbed his coat. Another gala tonight, one he hadn't planned to attend. But something, fate, desperation, or defiance, pulled him out the door. The charity gala was tucked in a downtown ballroom, less glitzy than the Met, but pulsing with purpose. Javion stood at the edge of the crowd, a glass of untouched scotch in hand, his tailored suit a shield against the whispers. He scanned the room, half expecting to see Raina, half dreading it. Then he heard her voice. On stage, Raina Westbrook gripped the microphone, her caramel skin radiant under the spotlight. Her thrifted dress clung to her curves, unpretentious yet commanding. Every year, thousands of women lose their voices to abuse, she said, her words sharp, unwavering. They're told they're nothing, that they deserve the pain. My organization, Rise Up, gives them back what was stolen, their power, their truth. We don't just rebuild lives, we remind them who they are. The crowd was silent, her passion slicing through their shallow chatter like a blade. Javion's breath caught. He'd heard speeches before, polished, rehearsed, forgettable. But Raina spoke like she'd lived every word, her voice a mix of fire and ache. He leaned toward a waiter passing by. Who is she? Raina Westbrook, the waiter whispered. Runs a non-profit in Harlem. She's the real deal. Javion's grip tightened on his glass. The real deal. He'd married 53 women who'd sworn they were, only to vanish with his trust. But Raina, he couldn't tear his eyes away. She wasn't performing. She was exposing a piece of her soul. For the first time in years, he felt something stir, not lust or intrigue, but a longing to be seen the way she saw those women, raw, unbroken, worthy. The applause thundered as she stepped off the stage, and Javion moved before he could second-guess himself. He wove through the crowd, ignoring the hands reaching for him, the murmurs of Steele Innovations trailing in his wake. He found her near the bar, sipping water, her posture relaxed but her eyes alert, scanning the room for donors or threats. He couldn't tell. "Mr. Steele," she said without turning, her voice cool. 53 ex-wives and still walking straight? He froze, then smirked, stepping into her line of sight. Maybe I was walking in the wrong direction. Until tonight. Her lips twitched, not quite a smile. She faced him fully, her gaze dissecting him like a surgeon. And what's tonight? Another headline for you? Being billionaire charmed by charity worker? I don't chase headlines, he said, his voice low, steady. I chase truth. And you, Ms. Westbrook, seem to have a lot of it. She raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. Truth isn't something you chase, Mr. Steele. It's something you face. And you don't strike me as a man who's ready for that. His jaw tightened, her words hitting harder than he'd expected. You don't know me. I know your story, she said, setting her glass down. Married 53 times, each one a bigger gamble than the last. You're not looking for love. You're looking for someone to fix what's broken in you. That's not my job. He stepped closer, the air between them electric. Then why do I feel like you're the first person in years who sees me and not my bank account? For a moment, her guard flickered, her eyes softening. Then she straightened, the wall back up. Because you're lonely, Mr. Steele, and loneliness makes you see what you want, not what's real. She turned, her dress brushing his arm as she walked away, leaving no number, no promise, just the scent of her perfume and an ache in his chest. Javion stood there, the crowd blurring around him. He should have been angry. Nobody walked away from him like that. But instead, he felt alive, her rejection sharper and more honest than any vow he'd heard. He wanted to chase her, to prove her wrong, but her words echoed. Truth isn't something you chase, it's something you face. Back at his penthouse, he couldn't sleep. Raina's face, her voice, her defiance, they looped in his mind. He called Marcus at 2 a.m. What did you find on Raina Westbrook? Marcus yawned through the phone. Not much yet, sir. Born in Harlem, raised by a single mom. Built, rise up from nothing. Grants, small donors, sheer will. No criminal record, no scandals. She's clean. Almost too clean. Almost, Javion pressed, pacing. There's a gap, Marcus said. 3 years, mid-20s. No records. No job, no address, nothing. Like she vanished, then reappeared with her nonprofit. I'm still digging. Javion's pulse quickened. A gap, a secret. Everyone had one, but Raina's felt like a lock he needed to pick. Keep looking, he said, and find out if she's connected to that letter. The next day, Javion did something he hadn't done in years. He showed up unannounced. Rise Up's office was a cramped storefront in Harlem, its walls plastered with photos of women smiling, their eyes fierce. Raina sat at a desk, typing furiously, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked up, startled, then sighed. Mr. Steele, she said, leaning back. What's this? A billionaire slumming it for a photo op? He closed the door, ignoring the curious glances from her staff. No cameras. Just me. I want to help. She laughed, sharp and skeptical. Help? You mean write a check and feel good about yourself? I mean partner, he said, sitting across from her. Your organization needs funding, infrastructure. I can give you that, resources, connections. No strings. Her eyes narrowed. There's always strings with men like you. What do you want, really? He leaned forward, his voice low. I want to know why you think I'm broken. And I want to know who you are when you're not saving the world. She held his gaze, unflinching. You don't get to know me just because you're curious. And I don't need your money. I need partners who understand the work, not CEOs playing savior. Then teach me, he said, the words spilling out before he could stop them. Show me what you do. Let me earn your trust. She studied him, her expression unreadable. Finally, she stood. Fine. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. We're running a workshop for survivors. Show up. No suit. No ego. If you last the day, maybe I'll believe you're serious. He nodded, his heart racing. I'll be here. As he left, her voice stopped him. Javion, she said, the first time she'd used his name. Don't come looking for a fairy tale. I'm not your happy ending. He turned, meeting her eyes. Maybe I'm not looking for an ending. Maybe I'm looking for a beginning. She didn't smile, but something shifted in her gaze. Curiosity, maybe, or a challenge. He walked out into the Harlem morning, the weight of her words settling into him. For the first time in 53 marriages, he wasn't chasing a ring or a vow. He was chasing her truth and his own. The next morning, Javion arrived at Rise Up in jeans and a plain shirt, his usual armor of wealth stripped away. The workshop was raw, heavy, women sharing stories of survival, their voices trembling but unbroken. Reina moved among them, her presence steady, grounding. Javion listened, silent, his chest tightening with every story. He'd spent years building an empire, but here, in this tiny room, he felt small, exposed. During a break, Reina approached him. "You're quiet," she said, handing him a coffee. "Too much for you?" "No," he said, his voice rough. "It's humbling." "You do this every day?" "Every day," she said. "This is what truth looks like, Javion. Not gala speeches or Forbes covers. Real people, real pain, real healing." He nodded, his throat tight. "I want to help. Not just with money. I want to understand." She studied him, then nodded. "Okay, but you're on probation. One wrong move and you're out." He smiled, a real one, not the polished smirk he used for cameras. "Deal." Over the next week, Javion showed up daily, hauling boxes, sitting in on sessions, listening more than he spoke. Reina watched him, her skepticism softening but never fading. They clashed often, his impatience against her caution, his privilege against her grit. But each argument left him more drawn to her fire matching his own. One evening, after everyone left, they stayed late, sorting files. "Why do you do this?" he asked, breaking the silence. "This work, it's heavy. What keeps you going?" She paused, her hands stilling. "Because I know what it's like to feel powerless," she said, her voice low. "I wasn't always this person. I had to fight to become her." He wanted to ask more, to pry into that 3-year gap Marcus had found, but her tone stopped him. Instead, he said, "You make me want to fight too, for something real." She looked at him, her eyes searching his. "Be careful, Javion. Real is messy. It hurts, and I'm not here to fix you." "I don't want you to fix me," he said, stepping closer. "I want you to challenge me, like you did at the gala." Her breath hitched, but she didn't move away. The space between them hummed, a tension neither could ignore. Then her phone buzzed, shattering the moment. She glanced at it, her face tightening. "I have to go," she said, grabbing her bag. "Reina, wait." He started, but she was already out the door, leaving him with more questions than answers. That night, Marcus called. "Sir, about Reina's past. I found something. During those missing years, she was in a women's shelter. No details, but it wasn't just a visit. She was a resident." Javion's stomach dropped. A shelter. Reina, the woman who radiated strength, had been broken once, too. The revelation didn't weaken her in his eyes. It made her more real, more untouchable. But it also raised a question. What had she survived, and why was she hiding it? Javion Steele sat in his penthouse, the admirer's letter now a crumpled relic on his desk, its words overshadowed by Reina Westbrook's presence in his life. The revelation about her past, a resident in a women's shelter during those missing years, had shifted something in him. It wasn't pity. It was awe. She'd clawed her way out of darkness to become a beacon for others, and he, with all his wealth and power, felt like a shadow in her light. But the nagging doubt lingered. Was she the letter's author, or was someone else pulling strings, guiding him to her? The question gnawed at him, but Reina's challenge at Rise Up's office, "Real is messy, it hurts," drove him to act. He couldn't stop thinking about her, the way her eyes softened when she spoke to survivors, the way her voice hardened when she called out his privilege. So, he did what he knew best. He gave. Anonymous donations began flowing to Rise Up, $50,000, then $100,000, wired through shell accounts to avoid his name. He told himself it was for her mission, not to win her. But deep down, he hoped she'd see him differently, as a man who could support her without strings. It took less than a week for her to find out. The glass doors of Steele Innovations' executive floor swung open, and Raina stormed in, her sneakers squeaking on the polished marble. Javion's assistant, Marcus, scrambled to intercept her, but she brushed past, her eyes locked on Javion, who stood behind his desk mid-call. He hung up, his pulse spiking at the fire in her gaze. "Miss Westbrook," he said, forcing calm, "to what do I owe—" "Cut the crap," she snapped, slamming a bank statement onto his desk. "Anonymous donations. Shell accounts. You think I'm stupid? I don't need your guilt money, Javion." He leaned back, his hands in his pockets to hide their tremble. "It wasn't guilt, it was respect. Your work deserves it." "My work deserves partners, not puppets pulling strings from penthouses," she said, her voice low, cutting. "You don't get to buy your way into my world. I told you, no strings." He stepped around the desk, closer than he should have, his voice dropping. "Then what do you need, Raina? Tell me." She held his gaze, unflinching, her breath shallow. "A man who knows how to stay," she said, the words soft but heavy, like a gauntlet thrown. "Not one who throws money at problems and calls it love." The air crackled, her challenge hanging between them. He wanted to reach for her, to promise he could be that man, but her eyes held a warning. "Prove it." She turned to leave, but he caught her wrist, gentle but firm. "Raina, wait," he said. "I'm not trying to buy you. I'm trying to show you I'm serious. I've spent years chasing women who wanted my name, my money. You're the first who doesn't, and I don't know how to do this. How to be enough for someone like you." She pulled her wrist free, but didn't step back. "Then stop trying to be enough and start being real," she said. "You want to help? Come back to Rise Up. Work with us, not for us. But don't think you can skip the hard parts with a check." He nodded, his throat tight. "I'll be there. Tomorrow. No suit, no ego. Just me." Her lips pressed into a line, skeptical but not dismissive. "We'll see." She walked out, leaving him with the echo of her words and the weight of her truth. That night, Javion couldn't sleep. Raina's challenge, a man who knows how to stay, cut deeper than any divorce. He'd never stayed, not really. 53 marriages, each one a sprint to the altar and a crash afterward. But Raina wasn't a sprint, she was a marathon, and he wasn't sure he had the endurance. Worse, the letter's mystery lingered. If Raina wasn't the author, who was? And why push him toward her now? He called Marcus. "Any leads on the letter?" "Nothing new," Marcus said, his voice tired. "But I'm cross-checking Raina's contacts. If she's not the writer, someone close to her might be. I'll keep digging." "Do it fast," Javion said, "and keep it quiet." The next day, Javion returned to Rise Up, true to his word, in jeans and a faded shirt. The workshop was quieter today, a support group for women rebuilding after abuse. Raina barely acknowledged him, her focus on the group, but he felt her eyes flick to him now and then, assessing. He sat in the back, listening as a woman named Carla shared her story, years of control, fear, and finally escape. Her voice shook, but her eyes were fierce, like Raina's. After the session, Javion helped stack chairs, his hands moving on autopilot. Raina approached, wiping sweat from her brow. "You didn't run," she said, almost surprised. "Told you I'd stay," he said, meeting her gaze. "I meant it." She nodded, but her expression was guarded. "Words are easy, Javion. Staying's hard, especially when it gets messy. Then let it get messy, he said, his voice raw. I'm not afraid of that. Are you? Her breath hitched, and for a moment he thought she'd close the distance between them. But she stepped back, her phone buzzing. She glanced at it, her face tightening, just like the night she'd bolted from the office. I have to go, she said, already moving. Raina, what's wrong? He called, but she was gone, the door swinging shut behind her. He stood there, frustration and worry coiling in his chest. She was hiding something, something tied to that phone, those sudden exits. Was it the shelter years, a threat, or the letter's author pulling her strings too? He needed answers, but pushing her now would break the fragile trust they'd built. Instead, he threw himself into Rise Up, showing up daily, learning names, carrying boxes, listening to stories that cracked his polished world open. Raina watched, her walls softening but never falling. Their conversations grew longer, sharper, laced with attention that wasn't just challenge but desire. Yet every time he got close, she pulled back, her phone buzzing, her eyes distant. A week later, Marcus called with a lead. The letters paper. It's custom, made by a small press in Brooklyn. Only one client in Harlem bought it last month. A woman named Lila Carter. She's a volunteer at Rise Up. Javion's heart sank. Lila. He'd met her, a quiet woman with kind eyes, always hovering near Raina. Was she the admirer orchestrating this? Or was she a pawn in something bigger? He needed to confront her, but not without Raina knowing. If he was wrong, he'd lose her trust for good. He headed to Rise Up, his mind racing. Raina was there, laughing with a group of women, her smile unguarded for once. He paused, struck by how much he wanted to protect that smile, not just chase it. But the letter, Lila, her secrets, they loomed like storm clouds. He'd promised to stay, but could he, when the truth might tear them apart? Javion Steele stood in the doorway of Rise Up's cramped Harlem office, his resolve hardening despite the storm of questions in his mind. The lead on Lila Carter, the volunteer tied to the admirer's letter, burned like a live wire, but confronting her without proof could unravel everything he'd built with Raina Westbrook. Her words, a man who knows how to stay, echoed, anchoring him. He'd promised to show up, to be real, and today he'd keep that promise. The truth about the letter could wait, but Raina couldn't. He stepped inside, the familiar hum of the nonprofit grounding him as he prepared for another day of work. Raina was at her desk, her brow furrowed over a stack of grant applications. She glanced up, her expression softening just a fraction when she saw him in his now standard jeans and worn t-shirt. "You're back," she said, her tone neutral but her eyes curious. "Told you I'd stay," he replied, offering a small smile. "What's on the list today?" She handed him a clipboard. "Mentorship session. Teen group. You're helping with the discussion circle. Don't screw it up." He nodded, ignoring the jab, and headed to the community room. The space was sparse, mismatched chairs, a whiteboard scrawled with affirmations, but it buzzed with raw energy. A dozen teenagers, mostly girls, sat in a loose circle, their faces a mix of defiance and vulnerability. Javion took a seat, feeling Raina's gaze from the doorway, watching, always watching. The facilitator, a wiry woman named Tanya, kicked things off. "Today's about dreams," she said. "What's one thing you want, no matter how big?" The group hesitated, eyes darting, until a girl named Kira spoke up, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want to be a doctor," she said, her braids falling over her face. "But my mom says it's too hard and we can't afford it." The room went quiet. Javion leaned forward, his voice gentle. "My mom told me I'd never run a company. Said I wasn't smart enough. I was 15, selling candy at school to buy my first computer. Now I'm here. Hard doesn't mean impossible, Kira." Her eyes widened, a spark igniting. "You really think I could?" "I know you can," he said, holding her gaze. Start small. Study 1 page a night. I'll get you a biology book if you want. Kira nodded, a shy smile breaking through. The other teens chimed in, their dreams spilling out. Artist, pilot, lawyer. Javion listened, offering quiet encouragement, his usual boardroom polish replaced by something raw, real. Reina, still in the doorway, tilted her head, her expression unreadable but softer than he'd ever seen. After the session, Kira lingered, clutching a notebook. Mr. Steele, thanks for, not laughing. Never, he said, crouching to her level. You remind me of me, kid. Keep dreaming big. She grinned and darted off, leaving Javion alone with Reina, who'd stepped into the room. You're good with them, she said, crossing her arms. Didn't expect that. He stood, brushing off his jeans. I didn't either. They're honest. Reminds me there's more to life than stock prices. She studied him, her guard not gone but fraying. Why are you here, Javion? Really? You could write a check and walk away. Why stay? He hesitated, then spoke from the gut. Because you make me want to be better. Not richer, not flashier, just better. I've spent years chasing women who wanted my name. You don't, and it's terrifying. But it's also the first thing that's felt real in a long time. Her breath caught, and for a moment, the air between them hummed with possibility. Then she laughed, a soft, unexpected sound that broke the tension and lit up her face. You're a mess, you know that? He grinned, the sound of her laugh pulling something loose in his chest. Yeah, but I'm your mess, if you'll let me stick around. She shook her head, still smiling. Don't get cocky. You're still on probation. They stood there, the laughter fading but the warmth lingering. For the first time, Javion didn't feel the urge to push, to propose, to dazzle, to win. He just wanted to listen, to soak in her presence. Tell me about Kira, he said, sitting on a chair. What's her story? Reina's eyes flickered with surprise, then gratitude. She sat across from him, her voice low. Her mom's in and out of shelters. Kira's been in foster care twice. She's smart, but the world keeps telling her she's not enough. Sound familiar? He nodded, thinking of his own childhood, the taunts about being a dreamer in a world that valued survival over ambition. Too familiar? How do you do it? Keep showing up for them even when it hurts. She leaned back, her gaze distant. Because someone showed up for me once, a counselor at a shelter. She saw me when I couldn't see myself. I owe her everything. He wanted to ask more about the shelter, those missing years, but her tone was a quiet boundary. Instead, he said, You're paying it forward. That's rare. She shrugged, but her eyes held his, a silent acknowledgement. The moment stretched, fragile and real, until her phone buzzed, shattering it. She glanced at it, her face tightening, and stood. I've got to handle something. Reina, he said, standing too. If you're in trouble, let me help. She shook her head, already moving. Not your fight, Javion. Stick to the kids. She was gone before he could argue, her quick exit a pattern he couldn't ignore. The phone, the tension, the secrets. Something was pulling her away, and it wasn't just work. Was it tied to Lila Carter, the volunteer linked to the letter? Or something deeper from her past? That night he called Marcus. What's the latest on Lila? She's clean on paper, Marcus said, but she's close to Reina. Too close. They met years ago before Rise Up. I'm still digging into where. And, sir, there's something else. Reina's been getting calls from a blocked number, multiple times a day. I traced one to a burner phone. No name. Javion's stomach twisted. A burner phone. Threats. An X question mark. The letter's author. Find out who's calling her, he said. And don't stop on Lila. I need answers. Hanging up, he stared out at the city. Raina's laugh still echoing in his mind. Today they'd connected, not as billionaire and activist, but as two people carrying their own scars. But the letter, Lila, the calls, they loomed like cracks in a foundation he was just starting to build. He'd promised to stay, to be real, but could he protect her from whatever was coming without losing her trust? Javion Steele sat in his penthouse, the memory of Raina Westbrook's laugh still warm in his chest, a fragile tether to something real. Their moment at Rise Up, her trust, their shared laughter, had felt like a turning point, a glimpse of a life beyond his 53 failed marriages. But the unanswered questions gnawed at him. The mysterious letter, Lila Carter's connection, the burner phone calls haunting Raina. He'd promised to stay, to be the man she needed. But the shadows of her secrets and his past felt closer than ever. He clutched his phone, debating whether to call her, when the doorbell's sharp chime cut through the silence. Marcus, his assistant, stood at the door, his face grim. "Sir, you have a visitor. It's Lucia Vale." Javion's blood ran cold. Lucia, wife number 39, the heiress who'd run off with his lawyer, leaving a trail of headlines and a hole in his trust. "What the hell does she want?" he growled, but before Marcus could answer, Lucia swept past him into the penthouse, her designer heels clicking like a countdown. She was as striking as ever, blonde, poised, her emerald eyes sharp with purpose, but her hand rested on a subtle curve at her waist, a detail that hit Javion like a punch. "Lucia," he said, his voice tight, "why are you here?" She didn't flinch, her gaze locked on his. "I'm pregnant, Javion, and you might be the father." The room spun. He gripped the back of a chair, his mind racing. "That's impossible. We divorced 3 years ago. You left you," she finished, her tone cool. "But we were still entangled, weren't we? That trip to Monaco 6 months ago. One night, no strings. Remember?" He did. A fleeting, reckless moment, a lapse in judgment fueled by bourbon and old wounds. He'd thought it was nothing, a mistake buried in the past. "You're sure?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Sure enough," she said, stepping closer. "I'm not here for money, Javion. I'm here because if this child is yours, you deserve to know. And so do I." His knees buckled and he sank onto the couch. A child. His child, maybe, with a woman who'd betrayed him. And Raina. God, Raina. How could he face her with this? "Get out," he said, barely a whisper. "I need time." Lucia's lips pressed into a line, but she nodded. "I'll be in touch. Don't run from this, Javion, not this time." She left, her perfume lingering like a ghost. He sat there, numb, until Marcus cleared his throat. "Sir, the press. They've got it already. Someone leaked it. It's everywhere." Javion's phone buzzed, notifications flooding in. Headlines screamed, "Billionaire Steele's ex-wife pregnant. Is he the father?" His heart sank. Raina. She'd see this, not from him, but from the vultures circling his life. He dialed her number, but it went straight to voicemail. Again. Again. Panic clawed at him. He grabbed his coat and headed to Rise Up, praying she'd be there, praying she'd listen. The nonprofit's office was dark, the door locked. He banged on it, his voice raw. "Raina, please, let me explain." No answer. A neighbor poked her head out, frowning. "She ain't here, man. Left hours ago." Javion drove to her apartment, a modest walk-up in Harlem. He knocked, then pounded, but the lights were off, the silence deafening. She was gone, disappeared, just like wife number 52, just like the others. But this time it wasn't betrayal that gutted him. It was loss. He slid to the ground, his back against her door, and buried his face in his hands. "Why does love always leave me?" he whispered, the words breaking in the empty hallway. Back at his penthouse, he drowned in bourbon and regret. The media frenzy grew, paparazzi camped outside his building, and Lucia's claim was dissected on every talk show. He tried Raina's phone again, left voicemails that sounded more desperate each time. "Raina, it's not what you think. Please, just talk to me. I need you." Nothing. Her social media was silent, her nonprofit's staff tight-lipped. She'd vanished, and the hole she left was deeper than any divorce. Marcus arrived the next morning, his face drawn. "Sir, I've got something on Raina. She's at a safe house in Brooklyn, one of Rise Up's off-the-books locations for survivors. No one's seen her leave." "A safe house?" Javion's heart twisted. "Why? Is she in danger?" "I don't know," Marcus admitted. "But those burner calls, they've stopped since she disappeared. And Lila Carter, she's been at the safe house too. They're connected, sir. I just don't know how." Javion stood, his jaw set. "Get me the address. I'm going to her." "Sir, if she's hiding, she doesn't want to be found," Marcus warned. "You could make it worse." "I've already lost her," Javion said, his voice raw. "I can't lose her without a fight." He drove to Brooklyn, the safe house a nondescript brownstone with barred windows. He knocked, his heart pounding, but a burly woman answered, her eyes narrowing. "You're not welcome here," she said, blocking the door. "I need to see Raina," he pleaded. "Just tell her I'm here, please." The woman hesitated, then shut the door. Minutes later, it opened again, and Lila Carter stepped out. Not the quiet volunteer he'd met, but a woman with steel in her gaze. "You shouldn't be here, Mr. Steele," she said. "Raina's done with you." "Is she okay?" he asked, his voice breaking. "I didn't mean for this." "Lucia, it's not what it seems." Lila's expression softened, but only slightly. "She saw the headlines. She thinks you're just another man who promises the world and delivers pain. You want to fix this? Leave her alone. She's protecting herself." "From me?" he asked, stunned. "From everything," Lila said, her voice low. "You don't know her story, not all of it." "Then tell me," he said, stepping closer. "Please, I love her." Lila's eyes flickered, but she shook her head. "That's not my truth to share. If you care about her, respect her space." "Go," he wanted to argue, to barge past her, but Lila's words stopped him. Raina was protecting herself. Maybe from him. Maybe from something else. The burner calls, the letter, her past. They were pieces of a puzzle he couldn't force together. He nodded, his chest tight, and walked away, the brownstone's door clicking shut behind him. Back in his car, he stared at the city, his empire meaningless without her. Lucia's pregnancy, Raina's disappearance, Lila's secrecy. It was all closing in, and he was drowning. But he wouldn't give up. He'd find Raina, not to win her back, but to prove he could stay even when it hurt. Have you ever thought you finally found peace, only for the past to come knocking? Tell me your story in the comments. Let's talk real love. Javion Steele sat in his car outside the Brooklyn safe house, the engine idling as Lila Carter's words carved deeper into his chest. Raina's protecting herself. From him, from her past, from something he couldn't yet name. The sting of her disappearance, fueled by Lucia Vale's pregnancy bombshell and the media's ruthless spin, felt like the 53rd divorce all over again, but sharper, more final. He gripped the steering wheel, Raina's laugh from their day at Rise Up, now a distant echo. The burner calls, Lila's secrecy, the admirer's letter. They swirled in his mind, a storm he couldn't outrun. But he wouldn't chase her this time. He'd wait, respect her space, and pray she'd come back. As he drove away, the weight of his own words, "I love her," settled into him. A truth he'd never spoken to any of his wives. Across the city, in the dim light of the safe house's attic room, Raina Westbrook sat at a rickety desk, a blank sheet of paper before her. The headlines about Javion and Lucia had hit like a betrayal, not because she believed them, but because they reminded her of her own scars, men who promised forever and left her broken. She'd run to protect herself, to shield her heart from the chaos of his world. But now, alone with her thoughts, she couldn't deny the ache of missing him, his quiet strength with Kira, his willingness to show up, his eyes that saw her, not her struggles. Her pen trembled as she began to write. Javion, I left because I loved you enough to let you choose. I've spent my life rebuilding from men who took and took. I thought you were different. But your world, headlines, ex-wives, secrets, it's a storm I can't survive again. I saw you with those kids, saw the man you could be, not the billionaire, but the one who listens, who stays. I love that man, but I can't compete with your past. If there's a child, you owe them your truth, not me. So I'm letting you go. Choose what's real, not what's easy. Reina. She stared at the words, her heart raw. It was everything she'd never said, everything she'd felt since the gala when he'd first challenged her. But sending it felt like surrender, like giving him power over her heart again. She folded the letter, tucked it into her journal, and whispered, "Not this time." The safe house creaked around her, a sanctuary and a cage, and she turned off the lamp, letting darkness swallow her resolve. Downstairs, Verity, a young volunteer at Rise Up, was tidying the common room when she found Reina's journal left on a chair. Verity, who'd seen Reina's strength inspire countless women, admired her fiercely but worried about her isolation since the headlines. Curious, she opened the journal, her eyes landing on the letter. Her breath caught. She'd seen Javion at the nonprofit, watched him stack chairs and listen to survivors, his polished exterior cracking under Reina's influence. Verity didn't know the whole story, Reina's past, the burner calls, the shelter years, but she knew love when she read it. She'll never send this, Verity murmured, her heart racing. But he needs to see it. Against her better judgment, Verity slipped the letter into an envelope, scribbled Javion's office address, and mailed it before she could second-guess herself. She told no one, not even Lila Carter, whose watchful eyes missed little. The act felt reckless, but Verity believed in Reina's happiness, even if Reina didn't. Days later, Javion sat in his Steele Innovations office, the city skyline a gray blur through the rain-streaked windows. He'd kept his distance from the safe house, honoring Reina's need for space, but the silence was killing him. Lucia's pregnancy test results were still pending, the media frenzy unrelenting, and Marcus's dig into Lila and the burner calls had hit a dead end. He was unraveling, his empire a hollow shell without Reina's fire to ground him. Marcus knocked, holding a plain envelope. "This came for you, sir. No return address." Javion's pulse spiked, memories of the admirer's letter flashing back. He tore it open, his hands shaking as he recognized Reina's handwriting. The words blurred as he read, each line a dagger and a lifeline. "I left because I loved you enough to let you choose. I love that man. Choose what's real." His breath hitched, tears he hadn't shed in years burning his eyes. She loved him, not the billionaire, not the headlines, but him. And she'd walked away, not out of fear, but to protect them both. He read it again, then again, her words searing into him. She'd seen his truth, his potential, and loved him despite his chaos. But the letter also laid bare her fear. His world, his past, could swallow her whole. He stood, his jaw set, the letter clutched in his hand. "Marcus," he called, his voice steady for the first time in days. "Cancel my meetings. I'm done running." "Where are you going?" Marcus asked, wary. "To choose her," Javion said, already grabbing his coat. "She's real. I'm not letting her go." He drove to the Brooklyn safe house, the letter in his pocket like a talisman. The rain pounded, mirroring the storm in his chest. He knocked, the same burly woman answering, her scowl deepening. "I told you, she doesn't—" "Tell her I have her letter," he interrupted, his voice raw but firm. "Tell her I choose her." The woman hesitated, then nodded, disappearing inside. Minutes later, Lila Carter appeared, her eyes guarded. "You don't give up, do you?" she said, crossing her arms. "Not when it's real," he replied, holding up the envelope. "She wrote this. I need to see her, Lila, please." Lila's gaze flickered to the letter, surprise breaking her stoic mask. "She didn't send that," she said almost to herself. "Wait here." Time crawled, the rain soaking him through, but he didn't move. Finally, the door opened and Raina stood there, her eyes red, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked at the letter in his hand, then at him, her voice barely a whisper. "How did you get that?" "Doesn't matter," he said, stepping closer. "What matters is you love me. And I love you, Raina. Not the gala version, not the non-profit hero, just you. I'm choosing you, not my past, not Lucia, not the noise. You're my truth." Her breath trembled, her walls cracking but not gone. "Javion, your world. It's too much. A child, the media, my past. I can't—" "Then we face it together," he said, his voice fierce. "I don't know if I'm the father, but I know I'm yours if you'll have me. Let me stay, Raina. Let me fight for us." She stared at him, the letter's words hanging between them. Then, slowly, she stepped forward, her hand brushing his. "You're a fool," she whispered, but her eyes held a spark, hope, maybe, or defiance. "Only for you," he said, his voice breaking. They stood there, rain blurring the world, the letter a bridge between their hearts. But the burner calls, Lila's secrets, and Lucia's claim loomed, unanswered threats to their fragile choice. Javion knew this wasn't the end, just a beginning, one he'd fight for, no matter the cost. Javion Steele stood in the rain outside the Brooklyn safe house, Raina Westbrook's hand brushing his, her touch a lifeline after weeks of loss and longing. Her letter, "I left because I loved you enough to let you choose," was folded in his pocket, its words a vow he'd never break. Her eyes, glistening with hope and defiance, held him captive, but the shadows of their unresolved questions lingered. Lucia Vale's pregnancy, the mysterious burner calls, Lila Carter's secrets. They'd chosen each other, but the world wasn't done testing them. As Raina stepped back, her voice soft but firm, "We'll talk tomorrow, Javion. Go home." He nodded, knowing this fragile moment was just the start. He drove away, the letter's weight grounding him, a promise to fight for her no matter what came next. The next morning, Javion woke with a clarity he hadn't felt in years. Raina wasn't another wife to win. She was the truth he'd been chasing through 53 failures. He showered, dressed in jeans and a simple jacket, no suits, no billionaire armor, and slipped her letter into his coat pocket. He didn't call ahead, didn't plan a speech. He just drove to Rise Up's Harlem office, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and certainty. The nonprofit was his last chance to show her he could stay, not as a savior, but as a man who'd learned to listen. The office buzzed with its usual chaos, volunteers sorting donations, phones ringing, Kira's laughter echoing from the community room. Javion stepped inside, scanning for Raina. She was at the back, helping a volunteer stack boxes, her hair in a loose braid, her sleeves rolled up. She looked up, her eyes widening as they met his. For a moment, the room faded, and it was just them, the air charged with everything unsaid. "Javion," she said, straightening, her voice cautious but warm. "You're early." "I couldn't wait," he said, stepping closer, ignoring the curious glances from staff. "I needed to see you." She crossed her arms, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "You saw me last night. What's so urgent?" He reached into his pocket, pulling out the letter, its edges worn from his grip. This, he said, holding it up. Your words. They're the only thing that's made sense in years. I've spent my life chasing love, Raina. 53 times. 53 mistakes. But you never asked to be my 54th wife. So I'm not asking that. Her brow furrowed, her breath catching. Then what are you asking? He stepped closer, his voice low, raw. Will you be my first real love? Not a headline, not a contract, just us, messy and honest. I don't want a prenup or a press release. I want you every day, every fight, every laugh. I want to stay. Her eyes searched his, the letter trembling in his hand. The room seemed to hold its breath, volunteers pausing, Kira peeking from the doorway. Raina's walls, so carefully built, flickered, and for the first time he saw her fully. Not just the activist, the survivor, but the woman who'd loved him enough to let him go. No prenup, she said finally, her voice steady but thick with emotion. No press, just honesty. Can you handle that, Javion? I've never wanted anything more, he said, his throat tight. She closed the distance, her hands framing his face, her touch grounding him. Then she kissed him, raw, desperate, a collision of need and trust. His arms wrapped around her, the letter falling to the floor as he pulled her close, her warmth erasing the cold of 53 heartbreaks. The kiss wasn't polished or staged, it was them, stripped bare, choosing each other in a room full of witnesses who'd seen her fight for others, and now saw her fight for herself. Kira let out a quiet cheer, and the volunteers clapped, their laughter breaking the spell. Raina pulled back, her forehead against his, her breath uneven. You're still a fool, she whispered, a smile breaking through. Only for you, he said, his voice rough, his hands still on her waist. She laughed, soft and real, and for a moment the world was perfect. But as they stepped apart, picking up the letter, reality crept back. Lucia's pregnancy test results were still pending, a ticking clock over their future. The burner calls had stopped, but Marcus's last report hinted at a deeper connection to Lila, who'd been at the safe house when Raina disappeared. And the admirer's letter, Verity's reckless act of mailing Raina's words, remained a loose thread, its origins unclear. Javion took Raina's hand, leading her to a quiet corner of the office. There's still so much we need to face, he said, his voice low. Lucia, the media, whatever you're hiding from those calls, I meant what I said. I'm in this, all of it. But I need you to trust me too. Her smile faded, her eyes clouding. I want to, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But trust. It's hard. My past taught me to run, Javion. Those calls, they're from someone I thought I'd escaped. I can't tell you everything yet, but I'm trying. He nodded, squeezing her hand. Then we'll figure it out together. No rush, no ultimatums. Just us. She leaned into him, her head against his chest, and for the first time he felt like home. Not a penthouse, not an empire, but her. Yet, as they stood there, Lila Carter watched from across the room, her expression unreadable. Javion caught her gaze, a chill running through him. Was she the admirer, the one who'd first pushed him toward Raina? Or was she guarding Raina's secrets, a gatekeeper with her own agenda? As they left the office hand in hand, the letter tucked back in his pocket, Javion knew this reunion was only the beginning. Lucia's claim, Raina's past, the unanswered questions, they loomed like storm clouds. But for now, he had her, and she had him. They'd face the chaos together, not as billionaire and activist, but as two people choosing love over fear, honesty over headlines. Javion Steele walked out of Rise Up's Harlem office, Raina Westbrook's hand in his, her kiss still burning on his lips. Their reunion, raw, desperate, sealed with her words, no prenup, no press. Just honesty had shifted the ground beneath him. The letter her love laid bare rested in his coat pocket, a quiet vow amidst the chaos of Lucia Vale's pregnancy claim, the mysterious burner calls, and Lila Carter's watchful gaze. As they stepped into the cool evening, Raina's warmth anchored him, but the unanswered threats loomed, a reminder that their love, though real, was fragile. She glanced at him, her eyes soft but fierce. "Come with me," she said, her voice low. "Not to your penthouse. My place." He nodded, his heart racing. "Wherever you want, Raina." They took a cab to her modest Harlem walk-up, the city's hum fading as they climbed the narrow stairs. Her apartment was small, lived in, books stacked on a thrift store table, photos of rise-ups women pinned to a corkboard, a single candle flickering on the counter. It was her, unfiltered, and Javion felt the weight of his billionaire world slip away. She locked the door, turning to face him, her braid loose, her eyes searching his. "You're here," she said, stepping closer, her voice a mix of wonder and challenge. "No cameras, no headlines, just us." "Just us," he echoed, his voice rough, the letter's words, "I love that man," echoing in his chest. She reached for him, her fingers tracing his jaw, and he felt the shift. She was leading, and for the first time he didn't need to control. Their kiss was slow at first, a continuation of the office's passion, but deeper, more deliberate. Her lips were soft but demanding, her hands sliding under his jacket, pushing it off his shoulders. He let it fall, his hands finding her waist, pulling her close, the heat of her body grounding him. "Raina," he murmured against her mouth, "I've never wanted anyone like this." She pulled back, her eyes locked on his, a spark of vulnerability beneath her strength. "Then show me," she said, her voice low, electric. "Not the CEO, just you." She took his hand, leading him to her bedroom, a small space with a creaky bed and a single lamp casting a warm glow. The air was charged, every touch a promise. She unbuttoned his shirt, her fingers deliberate, her gaze never leaving his. He shivered under her touch, not from cold, but from the intensity of letting go. His hands, so used to signing contracts and commanding boardrooms, moved with reverence, peeling away her sweater, tracing the curve of her caramel skin. She was beautiful, not in the polished way of his ex-wives, but in a raw, lived-in way that made his chest ache. Their clothes fell away, a slow unraveling of barriers. Raina pushed him onto the bed, her movements confident, her eyes fierce with desire. She straddled him, her hands pinning his wrists, and he surrendered, his breath hitching as she leaned down, her lips brushing his ear. "Let me feel you," she whispered, her voice a command and a plea. The room dissolved into sensation. Her kisses trailed down his neck, his chest, each one igniting a fire he couldn't contain. He arched into her, his hands roaming her back, her hips memorizing every curve. She moved with purpose, her body guiding his, their rhythm a dance of trust and need. The intensity built, a crescendo of gasps and whispered names, her nails digging into his shoulders as he gripped her thighs. It was sensual, patient, but electric. Every touch a conversation, her strength, his surrender, their shared hunger. "Javion," she breathed, her voice breaking as she pulled him closer, their bodies locked in a desperate, intimate tangle. He felt her shudder, her breath hot against his skin, and he let go, his control shattered, his heart laid bare. The world narrowed to her, her scent, her warmth, the way she held him like he was enough. Their climax was a shared release, intense and unguarded, a moment where nothing else existed, no past, no threats, just them. They collapsed together, her head on his chest, their breaths slowing in sync. The candle's flicker painted shadows on the wall, and for the first time in years, Javion felt peace. He stroked her hair, her braid undone, her curls soft under his fingers. "I've never," he started, his voice hoarse. "Not like that." Not with anyone. She lifted her head, her eyes soft but piercing. That's what real feels like, she said, her voice quiet. Messy, scary, but worth it. He nodded, pulling her closer, the letter's weight in his discarded coat, a distant echo. I'm not going anywhere, Raina. Whatever comes, Lucia, the calls, your past, I'm here. Her smile was small, tinged with worry. You say that now, but my past, it's not just a story. It's why I ran. Those calls, they're from someone who hurt me, someone I thought was gone. I'm not ready to tell you everything, but I will. Soon. He kissed her forehead, his heart steady. When you're ready, I'll listen. No rush. She nestled against him, her warmth a shield against the world. But as they lay there, the unanswered threats crept back. Lucia's pregnancy test was still pending, a potential fracture in their future. The burner calls, now silent, hinted at a danger Raina hadn't fully revealed. And Lila Carter, her secrecy, her connection to the admirer's letter, loomed like a shadow. Was she protecting Raina or hiding something worse? Verity's act of mailing Raina's letter had brought them here, but the original admirer's identity remained a mystery, a thread Javion couldn't ignore. As Raina's breathing softened into sleep, Javion stared at the ceiling, her words just honesty, anchoring him. This night, their intimacy was a promise, but the storm was coming. He'd face it with her, not as the billionaire who'd married 53 times, but as the man who'd finally found love worth fighting for. For now, he held her, the electric hum of their connection, a quiet defiance against the chaos waiting outside her door. What makes a moment unforgettable? Is it the timing or the person? Drop your answer in the comments. Javion Steele lay in Raina Westbrook's Harlem apartment, her body curled against his, the afterglow of their intense electric night, together a quiet hum in his veins. Her breath was soft against his chest, her words, just honesty, a vow that tethered him to her. Their intimacy had stripped away his need for control, leaving only trust, but the shadows of their challenges lingered. Lucia Vale's unresolved pregnancy claim, the burner calls tied to Raina's past, and Lila Carter's enigmatic role. As he kissed her forehead, promising to face it all together, he knew their love was real but fragile, a flame that needed guarding. The next morning he woke to her gone, a note on the pillow. Back at Rise Up. We'll talk tonight. He smiled, folding her letter from the safe house into his pocket, ready to keep showing up. 1 year later, the Harlem air was crisp, the autumn leaves swirling outside a small community center. Inside, Javion and Raina stood hand in hand, their wedding a quiet affair. No media, no flashing cameras, just 20 guests, including Kira, now a confident teen, and a few Rise Up volunteers. Raina's simple white dress hugged her pregnant belly, a gentle curve that made Javion's heart swell. He wore a tailored but understated suit, no tie, his usual billionaire polish replaced by a calm, grounded ease. The officiant, a local pastor, smiled as they exchanged vows they'd written themselves. I didn't find you, Javion said, his voice steady, his eyes locked on Raina's. You found me when I stopped searching. You showed me what love really is. Not a chase, not a contract, but showing up every day, even when it's hard. I promise to stay, to listen, to be your home. Raina's eyes glistened, her voice soft but fierce. You saw me, Javion, not the fighter or the survivor, but me. You chose me when I was scared to choose myself. I promise to trust you, to challenge you, to build a life where our child knows love that never runs. They kissed, a tender, grounded moment, the small crowd clapping, Kira's cheer the loudest. The reception was simple, catered soul food, a playlist of jazz and R&B, laughter filling the room. Javion felt lighter, freer, the man who'd married 53 times, now anchored by a love that didn't need headlines. Reina, radiant and 6 months pregnant, glowed with a quiet strength, her hand resting on her belly as they danced to Nina Simone. Their journey to this moment hadn't been easy. After their night together, they'd face the storm head-on. Lucia's pregnancy test came back negative. She'd lied, hoping to reclaim a piece of Javion's empire, but he'd cut her off, his focus solely on Reina. The burner calls were traced to Reina's ex, a man from her shelter years who'd resurfaced, seeking control. With Javion's support, Reina confronted him, securing a restraining order, her past no longer a chain. Lila Carter's role was clarified. She'd been protecting Reina, her silence a shield, not a scheme. The admirer's letter, they learned, was indeed Verity's doing, a reckless but well-meaning act that brought them together. Each challenge had tested them, but they'd faced it as a team, their love growing stronger with every truth uncovered. Now, as they swayed on the dance floor, Javion's hand on Reina's back, he marveled at the man he'd become. Steele Innovations still thrived, but he delegated more, spending days at Rise Up, mentoring kids like Kira, who was applying to pre-med programs. His penthouse was on the market. He and Reina had bought a brownstone nearby, a home for their growing family. He was calmer, his restless heart at peace, the need to chase replaced by the joy of staying. Reina leaned into him, her voice a whisper. "You're thinking too much." He chuckled, kissing her temple. "Just thinking how I got so lucky." "Lucky?" She raised an eyebrow, her smile teasing. "I'm the one who tamed a billionaire." "Tamed?" he said, grinning. "You set me free." She laughed, the sound he'd live for, and they danced on, the world outside irrelevant. But later, as they sat at a table, sharing cake with Kira, Reina's expression shifted, a flicker of worry crossing her face. "Javion," she said, her hand squeezing his, "there's something I haven't told you." His heart skipped, but he kept his voice steady. "Whatever it is, we'll handle it." "What's wrong?" She took a breath, her eyes searching his. "My ex. He's out on parole. I got a call last week. He hasn't contacted me, but I'm scared. Not for me. For our baby." Javion's jaw tightened, but he pulled her close, his voice firm. "He won't touch you or our child. I'll hire security, get the best lawyers. You're not alone anymore, Reina." "We're a family." She nodded, her tension easing, but the news lingered, a quiet threat. As the night wound down, they said goodbye to their guests, Kira hugging them both, promising to visit the brownstone. Alone in the community center, Javion and Reina cleaned up, a mundane task that felt sacred in its simplicity. "You okay?" he asked, stacking chairs, watching her closely. "I am," she said, folding a tablecloth. "With you, I always am. I want our kid to grow up safe, you know?" "They will," he said, crossing to her, his hands on her shoulders. "We'll make sure of it. Together." She smiled, leaning into him, her belly pressing against him. "You're gonna be a great dad, you know that?" He grinned, his heart full. "Only because you're gonna be an incredible mom." They kissed, soft but deep, a promise of forever. As they locked up and stepped into the Harlem night, hand in hand, the future felt bright but not without its edges. Reina's ex, the media's occasional prying, the demands of their lives. They'd face it all, not as billionaire and activist, but as husband and wife, parents-to-be, a team forged in love and truth. Would you wait through 53 heartbreaks for one soul-deep connection? Did this story hit you right in the heart? Go ahead and tap that like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe for more real, emotional stories like this. Drop just one word in the comments. How did this story make you feel? While you are at it, check out the video currently showing on your screen. See you in the next one.